Child finds a fox cub in the backyard, but what appears behind it makes the parents run. The morning air in Burlington, Vermont, carried the crisp scent of early autumn as 8-year-old Ethan Mitchell stood at his bedroom window, watching golden leaves dance in the gentle breeze. The Richardson family had moved to their new home on the outskirts of town just 3 weeks ago, trading the bustling streets of Boston for the tranquil embrace of the Green Mountain State. Their property backed up against the dense Burlington woods, a fact that still filled Ethan with equal parts wonder and trepidation. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Let us know which city you're watching us from. Stay with us. Sarah Richardson, Ethan's mother, had chosen this particular house for its sprawling backyard and the promise of peaceful mornings spent gardening. Her husband, James, a wildlife photographer, had fallen in love with the location the moment he laid eyes on it. The proximity to nature meant endless opportunities to capture the local wildlife without having to venture far from home. That Saturday morning started like any other, with the sun casting long shadows across their well-maintained lawn. Ethan had just finished his breakfast and was about to head outside to explore the new treehouse his father had begun building the previous weekend. The structure wasn't complete yet, but it already served as the perfect observation post for the curious boy who loved watching the various creatures that visited their yard. The air was unusually still, almost expectant, when a sharp, high-pitched cry pierced the morning silence. Ethan froze, his hand hovering over the back door handle. The sound was unlike anything he'd heard before. Not quite a bark, not quite a whimper, but something in between that tugged at his heart in an inexplicable way. Following the sound, Ethan cautiously made his way toward the back of the property. His mother was in the kitchen, preparing for her weekly video call with her sister in California, while his father had stepped into his home office to review some photographs from his latest assignment. Neither had noticed the strange cry that had caught their son's attention. As Ethan approached the line where their manicured lawn met the wild undergrowth of the woods, the sound came again. Clearer this time. It seemed to be coming from beneath an old maple tree, where fallen branches and leaves had created a natural shelter. His sneakers crunched softly against the frost-kissed grass as he drew closer, his heart beating a little faster with each step. That's when he saw it. A small, red fox kit, no bigger than their neighbor's cat, huddled among the dried leaves and twigs. Its rust-colored fur was matted and dirty, and its eyes, wide with fear, locked onto Ethan's approaching figure. The young fox tried to move away, but something was clearly wrong. It couldn't seem to stand properly, and each attempt to retreat only resulted in a pitiful whimper. Ethan's first instinct was to help the creature, just as he would help any injured animal. His mother had always taught him to be kind to all living things, and his father had instilled in him a deep respect for wildlife. But before he could take another step, an intense rustling in the underbrush stopped him in his tracks. The sound came from somewhere deeper in the woods, and it was getting closer. The boy's heart raced as he realized he wasn't alone with the injured kit. Something larger was moving through the vegetation, something that didn't want to be seen but was determined to reach this spot. The rustling grew louder, and Ethan could now make out the sound of dry leaves being crushed under careful footsteps. From his peripheral vision, he caught sight of movement near the property line. Sarah and James, having finally heard the commotion, had emerged from the house and were now watching the scene unfold with growing concern. James instinctively reached for his camera, which he always kept near the back door, while Sarah took a few tentative steps toward her son. The tension in the air was palpable as an adult fox emerged from the shadows of the woods. Its red fur was vibrant against the autumn backdrop, and its eyes, intelligent and fierce, moved between the kit and the humans who stood between them. The adult fox's body was tense, ready to spring into action at the slightest provocation. Before anyone could react, another rustle announced the arrival of a second adult fox, larger and more muscular than the first. This one moved with an air of authority, its gaze more intense and focused. The situation had suddenly become more complex, and the Richardsons found themselves in the middle of a drama they never expected to witness in their own backyard. Sarah's maternal instincts kicked in, and she wanted nothing more than to pull Ethan away from the scene. But something in her son's stance, the way he remained perfectly still, told her that any sudden movement might make things worse. James, meanwhile, had slowly raised his camera, recognizing that he was witnessing something extraordinary, something few people ever got to see up close. The larger fox took a step forward, its movements deliberate and calculated. The kit attempted once again to move toward the adults, but whatever injury it had sustained made movement nearly impossible. The first fox emitted a low, guttural sound that seemed to communicate both worry and warning. Just then, a new sound cut through the tense atmosphere, the sharp, insistent barking of a dog. The Wilsons' German Shepherd, Duke, had detected the fox's presence and was now raising the alarm from the neighboring yard. The sudden noise caused the foxes to stiffen, their muscles coiled tight with tension. Duke's barking echoed through the yard, shattering the delicate standoff. James Richardson's fingers tightened around his camera as he watched the scene through his viewfinder, years of wildlife photography experience telling him that something remarkable was about to unfold. The larger fox's ears twitched at each bark, but its eyes remained fixed on the injured kit, calculating, planning. Sarah had managed to inch closer to Ethan, her movements so subtle they were barely perceptible. Her son, however, remained rooted to the spot, his eyes never leaving the small fox kit. There was something in the child's gaze that spoke of understanding beyond his years, a recognition of the gravity of the moment they were witnessing. The rustling in the undergrowth intensified once more, and a third fox emerged from the shadows. This one moved with the practiced ease of experience, its silver-tipped fur suggesting advanced age. Unlike the others, it showed no signs of agitation. Instead, it surveyed the scene with what could only be described as wisdom, its amber eyes taking in every detail of the situation. James watched through his lens as the eldest fox's gaze settled on Ethan. Something passed between them, a moment of silent communication that made the photographer lower his camera in awe. The boy's shoulders relaxed slightly, and though he didn't move, his posture shifted from frozen fear to quiet attention. Sarah noticed the change in her son and felt her own anxiety begin to ebb. Having grown up in rural Maine, she had heard stories of foxes all her life, tales of their cunning, their family bonds, and their remarkable intelligence. But nothing had prepared her for this intimate glimpse into their world, playing out in her own backyard. The eldest fox took a few measured steps forward, its movement causing Duke's barking to intensify. Yet the fox paid no attention to the distant threat. Instead, it focused entirely on the kit, which had begun making small, distressed sounds. The first two foxes adjusted their positions, creating a protective semicircle around their injured family member. Ethan, still standing closer to the kit than any of the adults, human or fox, found himself holding his breath. He could see now what had happened. The young fox's leg was tangled in some old fishing line, probably dragged there from the nearby Lake Champlain by another animal. The discovery made his heart ache, but he knew better than to move closer. The silver-tipped fox took another step forward, and this time something remarkable happened. It looked directly at James and Sarah, then back at Ethan, before letting out a soft, almost musical sound. The other foxes responded immediately, their bodies relaxing slightly, though remaining alert. The message was clear. They were acknowledging the humans' presence not as a threat, but as witnesses to their rescue mission. Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes as she watched the scene unfold. In all her years of living in New England, she had never experienced anything like this. The foxes were displaying a level of coordination and intelligence that defied everything she thought she knew about wild animals. James, meanwhile, had resumed photographing, his trained eye capturing every nuance of this extraordinary encounter. The morning sun had risen higher now, casting dappled shadows through the canopy of leaves above. The light played across the fox's fur, creating a tableau that seemed almost magical. The eldest fox made another sound, different from the first, and the larger of the other two adults began to move with new purpose. With precise movements that spoke of countless hunts and rescues, the large fox circled around until it was positioned behind the kit. The young one's eyes darted back and forth, but it remained surprisingly calm, as if understanding that help had arrived. The first fox that had appeared now moved closer to the humans, not in threat but in distraction, drawing their attention away from what was about to happen. Duke's barking had finally begun to subside, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves in the morning breeze. The temperature had risen enough to burn away the early frost, and the air was filled with the earthy scent of autumn. Time seemed to slow as the family watched the rescue operation unfold with military precision. The silver-tipped fox maintained its position, its presence alone appearing to calm both the kit and the other adults. There was something almost regal in its bearing, like a general overseeing a delicate operation. Every few moments, it would glance at the humans, as if ensuring they understood their role in this drama, to remain still and bear witness. James couldn't help but think about the stories he'd heard from local wildlife experts about fox families in the Burlington woods. They had spoken of complex social structures and sophisticated hunting strategies, but nothing quite like this. He was documenting something that would challenge everything wildlife researchers thought they knew about vulpine behavior. Ethan, still standing closest to the scene, felt a strange sense of privilege wash over him. Somehow, he knew he was being allowed to witness something few humans ever saw, the intimate workings of a fox family's rescue mission. The way the adults moved around each other, the subtle vocalizations, the coordinated effort, it was like watching a well-rehearsed dance. The tension in the air reached its peak as the third fox, the one with the silver-tipped fur, moved with calculated precision through the underbrush. Its presence seemed to change the entire dynamic of the situation. Even Duke's barking, which had been so persistent, began to fade into the background, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Sarah's grip on James's arm tightened as they watched the scene unfold. The experienced fox's movements were unlike anything they had ever witnessed, each step deliberate, each pause meaningful. It was clear this wasn't just any fox. This was a creature that had survived countless seasons and learned the delicate art of survival in these woods. Ethan remained motionless, his young mind trying to process everything he was seeing. The way the three adult foxes moved in perfect coordination reminded him of the nature documentaries his father loved to watch. But this was different. This was real, happening right in front of him, in their own backyard. He could feel the morning dew soaking through his sneakers, but he didn't dare move. The silver-tipped fox's eyes, filled with an almost human-like intelligence, surveyed the scene one final time. The largest fox had positioned itself strategically, between the humans and the kit, while the first fox that had appeared maintained its vigilant watch of the surrounding area. It was like watching a carefully choreographed dance, where each participant knew their role perfectly. James, still clutching his camera, couldn't help but be amazed at how the foxes seemed to communicate without making a sound. Years of wildlife. Photography had taught him that animals were capable of incredible things, but this level of coordination and intelligence was beyond anything he had documented before. He knew he was witnessing something extraordinary, a moment that would challenge everything he thought he knew about wildlife behavior. The injured kit, still tangled in the fishing line, made another soft whimpering sound. The sound seemed to trigger something in the elder fox. With movements that spoke of years of experience, it began to approach the kit. Its path wasn't direct. Instead, it moved in a way that seemed to be testing the human's reactions, gauging their intentions with each step. Sarah watched in amazement as the fox family worked together. The largest fox had shifted its position slightly, creating a perfect sight barrier between the kit and any potential threats from the forest. The first fox had moved closer to the humans, not in an aggressive way, but in a manner that seemed designed to keep their attention divided. It was a strategy that spoke of intelligence far beyond mere animal instinct. The silver-tipped fox was now close enough to the kit that Ethan could see its whiskers twitching as it assessed the situation. The young boy held his breath, understanding, somehow, that he was witnessing something few humans ever got to see. The elder fox's eyes met his for a brief moment, and in that connection, Ethan felt something he couldn't quite explain, a sense of trust, perhaps, or a shared concern for the trapped kit. The morning sun had risen higher, casting long shadows through the trees and creating a dappled pattern on the ground around them. The light caught the silver tips of the elder fox's fur, giving it an almost ethereal appearance. Time seemed to slow as the fox made its final approach to the injured kit. Every movement was calculated, every pause meaningful. Suddenly, Duke's barking intensified again, causing everyone, human and fox alike, to freeze. The neighbor's dog had caught a fresh scent of the fox's, and his excited barks echoed through the yard. The larger fox tensed, ready to defend if necessary, but the silver-tipped elder remained focused on its task. Years of experience had taught it to distinguish between real threats and mere distractions. The elder fox was now within reaching distance of the kit. The fishing line that had trapped the young one was clearly visible, wrapped around its back. Leg in a way that prevented escape but hadn't caused serious harm. The kit's eyes were fixed on the elder, trust evident in its gaze. Despite its fear and discomfort, some instinct told it that help had arrived. James watched through his camera lens as the rescue operation reached its crucial moment. The elder fox's movements became even more precise, if that was possible. The other two adults maintained their positions, creating a protective barrier that shielded the most vulnerable moment from any potential threats. The coordination was flawless, speaking to a level of social organization that scientists had barely begun to understand. The morning breeze carried the scent of autumn leaves and distant pine, creating a peaceful backdrop to this intense scene. Sarah had managed to move slightly closer to Ethan, her maternal instincts warring with her understanding that they needed to remain still. The boy seemed to sense her presence, but didn't take his eyes off the unfolding rescue. His face showed a mixture of concern and wonder that touched her heart. Duke's persistent barking continued to pierce the morning air, each bark seeming louder and more urgent than the last. The Wilson's German Shepherd had clearly sensed the unusual gathering in the neighboring yard, and his protective instincts were in full force. The sound echoed through the trees, creating a tense backdrop to the delicate operation unfolding before the Richardson family. The largest fox, its muscles visibly tense beneath its russet fur, took a defensive stance. Its eyes darted between the direction of the barking and the humans, calculating potential threats and escape routes. Yet, remarkably, it held its position, seemingly understanding that this moment was too crucial to abandon. Sarah's maternal instincts were screaming at her to pull Ethan away from the scene, but something in her son's stance made her hesitate. The boy stood perfectly still, his body relaxed despite the tension surrounding him. It was as if he understood, something that the adults didn't, that they were privileged witnesses to a remarkable display of nature's own protective instincts. James continued to document the scene through his camera lens, his professional eye capturing every nuanced movement of the fox family. In all his years of wildlife photography, He had never witnessed anything quite like this. The way the three adult foxes worked in perfect harmony, each fulfilling its role in this rescue mission, challenged everything he thought he knew about wildlife behavior. The silver-tipped fox, clearly the most experienced of the group, maintained its focus on the trapped kit, despite the growing chaos around them. Its movements were precise and deliberate, each step calculated to avoid startling the young one or alerting potential predators. The wisdom in its actions was evident. This was a creature that had survived countless seasons and learned the delicate balance of life in these woods. The first fox that had appeared, which had been maintaining its vigilant watch, suddenly shifted position. Its movement was fluid and purposeful, placing itself between the kit and the direction of Duke's barking. The coordination between the three adult foxes was remarkable. They moved like dancers in a well-choreographed performance, each knowing exactly where they needed to be at every moment. Ethan watched in fascination as the elder fox finally reached the trapped kit. The fishing line that had ensnared the young one was more visible now, wrapped around its leg in a way that prevented escape, but thankfully hadn't caused serious injury. The kit's eyes were fixed on its rescuer, trust evident in its gaze despite the fear that still made its small body tremble. The morning sun had climbed higher in the sky, its rays filtering through the canopy of leaves above and creating shifting patterns on the forest floor. The light caught the silver tips of the elder fox's fur, giving it an almost mystical appearance as it began the delicate work of freeing the kit. Each movement was careful and precise, the product of years of experience in surviving in these woods. Sarah found herself holding her breath as she watched the rescue unfold. The scene before her challenged everything she thought she knew about wild animals. These weren't just creatures acting on instinct, they were displaying a level of intelligence and cooperation that seemed almost human. The way they protected their young, worked together, and assessed the situation spoke of a complexity she had never considered before. James's camera quietly captured frame after frame of the extraordinary scene. He knew that what he was documenting would be of incredible value to wildlife researchers and conservationists. The level of social organization and problem-solving being displayed by these foxes was unprecedented, at least in any documentation he had ever seen or heard about. The tension in the air reached its peak as Duke's barking suddenly intensified, accompanied by the sound of scratching against wood. He was trying to get out of his fenced yard. The largest fox's ears twitched at the sound, and its muscles tensed even further, ready to defend if necessary. Yet it maintained its position, trusting in the elders' leadership and the importance of their mission. The morning breeze carried the scent of pine and decaying leaves, a reminder of the changing seasons and the harsh winter that would soon arrive. This understanding seemed to add urgency to the fox's rescue mission. They needed to get their young one to safety before the weather turned. The elder fox worked with increased determination, its experienced paws moving with surprising dexterity around the tangled fishing line. The urgency in Duke's barking reached a fever pitch, creating a backdrop of chaos to the delicate operation taking place in the Richardson's backyard. The sound of his paws scratching against his wooden fence grew more intense, adding to the tension that hung thick in the autumn air. Yet remarkably, the foxes maintained their focus, their determination to rescue their young one, overriding their natural instinct to flee. The silver-tipped elder fox had positioned itself perfectly beside the trapped kit, its experienced eyes assessing the situation with a clarity that came from years of survival in these woods. The fishing line that had ensnared the young one was now clearly visible to all. A man-made intrusion into their natural world that had created this extraordinary moment of interaction between two species. James Richardson's finger hovered over his camera's shutter button, his professional instincts warring with his understanding of the gravity of the moment. Every frame he captured would be invaluable documentation of this unprecedented behavior, but he knew that even the quiet click of his camera could disrupt the delicate balance of the scene before him. Sarah had managed to inch closer to Ethan, her hand now resting lightly on his shoulder. She could feel the slight tremor in her son's body, not from fear, she realized, but from the sheer intensity of what they were witnessing. The boy's eyes remained fixed on the injured Kit, his young face showing a depth of understanding that touched her heart. The largest fox, still maintaining its protective stance, suddenly shifted position. The movement was so fluid it seemed almost choreographed, as it created a better barrier between the Kit and the direction of Duke's increasingly frantic barking. The coordination between the three adult foxes was like watching a silent symphony, each member playing its part to perfection. Ethan felt his heart racing as he watched the elder fox begin its careful work. The morning sun had risen higher now, its rays catching the silver tips of the fox's fur and creating an almost ethereal glow around its form. Time seemed to slow as the experienced creature used its teeth with surgical precision, working to free the Kit from its entanglement. The first fox that had appeared maintained its vigilant watch, its eyes constantly scanning the surroundings, while occasionally glancing back at the rescue operation. Its behavior spoke of years of learned survival strategies, understanding that moments of vulnerability required extra caution. The fox's muscles were tense, ready to sound an alarm at the slightest sign of additional threat. A sudden gust of wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it the earthy scent of fallen leaves and distant pine. The breeze seemed to energize Duke even further, his barking taking on a new urgency that made the largest fox's ears twitch in response. Yet the elder fox remained focused on its task, its movements steady and deliberate despite the growing chaos around them. The trapped Kit, which had been whimpering softly, suddenly went quiet as the elder fox made progress with the tangled line. There was something almost mystical in the way the young one trusted its rescuer, its eyes fixed on the elder with a mixture of hope and patience that seemed beyond its years. The bond between them was palpable, transcending the simple dynamics of a rescue operation. Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes as she watched the scene unfold. As a mother, she recognized the fierce protective instinct driving these creatures. The way they worked together, their unwavering focus on saving one of their own, reminded her of the universal nature of familial love. These weren't just wild animals acting on instinct. They were a family, bound together by something deeper than mere survival. James had lowered his camera slightly, understanding that some moments were too precious to view through a lens. The morning light had created a natural spotlight on the rescue scene, illuminating the fox's fur in shades of copper and gold. The photographer in him appreciated the perfect composition nature had created, while the father in him understood the deeper significance of what they were witnessing. The urgent sound of Duke's barking suddenly changed pitch, indicating he had moved to a different part of his yard. The largest fox responded immediately, adjusting its position with fluid grace to maintain the protective barrier it had created. The first fox also shifted slightly, maintaining the perfect triangle formation they had established around the Kit. The elder fox's movements became more purposeful as it worked to free the trapped Kit. Its experienced paws moved with remarkable dexterity around the tangled fishing line, each motion calculated and precise. The morning sun cast long shadows across the yard, creating a natural spotlight on this extraordinary rescue operation that the Richardson family had the privilege to witness. Duke's persistent barking had created a rhythm of its own, a chaotic counterpoint to the methodical movements of the fox family. The sound of his claws against the wooden fence grew more intense, but the adult foxes had adapted to the noise, their focus unwavering from their crucial task. They had seemingly assessed that the confined dog posed no immediate threat to their rescue mission. Ethan stood transfixed, his young mind processing every detail of the scene before him. He noticed how the largest fox would adjust its position with each change in Duke's barking pattern, maintaining perfect coverage of their vulnerable young one. The first fox that had appeared continued its vigilant watch, creating a seamless defensive perimeter that spoke of years of evolved survival strategies. Sarah's grip on her son's shoulder had relaxed slightly as she observed the incredible display of coordination before them. As an elementary school teacher, she had always taught her students about the intelligence of wildlife, but this was something beyond what any textbook had ever described. The foxes weren't just acting on instinct, they were demonstrating problem-solving skills and teamwork that challenged conventional understanding of wildlife behavior. James had resumed his careful documentation of the scene, his experienced hands keeping the camera steady despite his racing heart. Through his viewfinder, he captured the subtle interactions between the foxes, the quick glances, the slight adjustments in position, the way they seemed to communicate without making a sound. Each frame told part of a larger story about the complexity of wildlife family bonds. The morning breeze carried the rich scent of autumn through the yard, rustling the remaining leaves on the trees above. The kit had remained remarkably still throughout the rescue attempt, as if understanding that its cooperation was crucial to its own salvation. Its trust in the elder fox was absolute, a testament to the deep bonds that existed within their family group. The silver-tipped fox's experience showed in every movement as it worked to free the kit. Its actions were deliberate but gentle, understanding, the delicate balance between speed and caution that the situation required. The other two adults maintained their protective formation, their bodies tense but controlled, ready to respond to any change in their environment. Sarah found herself holding her breath as the elder fox made significant progress with the tangled line. The morning sun caught the silver tips of its fur, creating an almost ethereal glow around its form. She had lived in New England all her life, but had never witnessed anything like this. A moment where the barrier between human and wildlife seemed to dissolve, replaced by a shared understanding of the importance of family and protection. The largest fox suddenly shifted its weight, responding to a change in Duke's barking pattern. Its movement was so fluid it seemed almost choreographed, maintaining the perfect defensive position while allowing the elder fox to continue its delicate work. The first fox adjusted its position in response, maintaining the triangular formation they had established around the kit. Through his camera lens, James noticed something remarkable about the elder fox's technique. It wasn't just randomly pulling at the fishing line. Its movements showed a clear understanding of how the line was tangled and what needed to be done to free the kit without causing further distress. The intelligence displayed in its actions was undeniable, challenging everything he thought he knew about wildlife behavior. The kit's eyes remained fixed on its rescuer, showing a level of trust that touched everyone who witnessed it. Despite the chaos of Duke's barking and the tension in the air, the young fox maintained a remarkable calm, as if understanding that its family would never abandon it to face this challenge alone. The bond between them was palpable, transcending the simple dynamics of survival. The tension in the air reached its peak as the elder fox made its final, calculated moves to free the trapped kit. The silver-tipped fox's experience was evident. In every precise movement, its actions showing a deep understanding of the delicate task at hand. The morning light filtered through the canopy above, casting dappled shadows that seemed to dance around the extraordinary scene unfolding in the Richardsons' backyard. Duke's barking had taken on a new urgency, and the sound of his determined scratching against the fence grew more intense. The largest fox responded to each change in the dog's position with subtle adjustments of its own, maintaining the protective barrier it had created. The first fox that had appeared remained vigilant, its eyes constantly scanning the surroundings. While staying attuned to the progress of the rescue, Ethan felt his heart racing as he watched the elder fox work. He could see now that the fishing line was starting to loosen its grip on the kit's leg, the result of the experienced fox's careful manipulation. The young boy remained perfectly still, understanding instinctively that any sudden movement could disrupt this crucial moment. His parents' presence behind him provided silent support, all three humans united in their witness of this remarkable event. Sarah's teacher's mind was working overtime, taking in every detail of the scene before her. The way the three adult foxes worked together challenged everything she had ever taught her students about wildlife behavior. Their coordination was flawless, their understanding of each other's roles perfect. This wasn't just instinct, it was intelligence, strategy, and family bonds, all working in harmony. James continued to document the rescue through his camera lens, though he found himself lowering the camera more frequently to watch with his own eyes. As a wildlife photographer, he had captured countless remarkable moments, but this was different. The level of sophistication in the fox's behavior, their problem-solving abilities, and their unwavering focus on protecting their young one was unprecedented in his experience. The morning had grown warmer, burning away the last traces of dawn, frost. The breeze carried the rich scent of autumn through the yard, rustling the remaining leaves on the trees and creating a gentle soundtrack to the intense scene below. The kit remained remarkably still, its trust in its rescuers absolute, even as the elder fox made the final, crucial attempts to free it from the entangling line. The largest fox suddenly tensed, its ears twitching at a new sound from the direction of Duke's yard. The first fox responded immediately, adjusting its position to maintain their defensive formation. Their movements were so synchronized, it seemed almost rehearsed, yet each action was spontaneous, born from years of evolved family behaviors and survival strategies. Sarah felt her maternal instincts surge as she watched the elder fox's careful work with the kit. As a mother, she recognized the fierce determination driving these creatures to protect their young. The way they worked together, their unwavering focus on saving one of their own, spoke to something universal about parental love that transcended species. A sudden gust of wind sent leaves swirling around the yard, creating a moment of heightened tension. The adult foxes remained steady, their focus unbroken by the distraction. The elder fox's movements became even more precise, its experienced paws working with surgical accuracy around the tangled line. Years of survival in these woods had taught it the value of patience and precision. James captured frame after frame of the unfolding drama, knowing that what he was documenting would challenge conventional understanding of wildlife behavior. The morning light caught the silver tips of the elder fox's fur, creating an almost ethereal quality to the images. Through his viewfinder, he could see the subtle communications between the adults, the quick glances, the slight shifts in position, the way they responded to each other's movements without any visible signals. The crucial moment had arrived. With one final precise movement, the elder fox managed to loosen the last loop of fishing line from around the kit's leg. The young fox let out a small whimper, not of pain but of relief, as it felt the constraining pressure finally release. The morning air seemed to hold its breath as everyone, human and fox alike, realized that the rescue mission had reached its pivotal point. Duke's barking had become a distant backdrop to the intense focus of the scene before them. The largest fox maintained its protective stance, its muscles visibly tense beneath its russet fur, ready to move at a moment's notice. The first fox that had appeared shifted slightly, adjusting its position to better shield the vulnerable moment of the kit's liberation. Ethan watched with wide eyes as the elder fox gently nudged the freed kit, checking for any injuries. The silver-tipped fox's movements were tender yet purposeful, displaying a level of care that touched something deep in the young boy's heart. He had always loved animals, But witnessing this intimate moment of family devotion showed him something that went beyond what any book or nature documentary could convey. Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes as she watched the gentle interaction between the elder fox and the kit. As an educator, she had always taught her students about the intelligence of wildlife, but this display of problem-solving and familial cooperation went beyond anything she could have imagined teaching in her classroom. The foxes weren't just surviving, they were demonstrating complex social behaviors that spoke of deep emotional bonds. James's camera captured every nuanced moment of the rescue's completion, though he found himself increasingly watching with his own eyes rather than through the lens. The morning light had created perfect conditions for photography, but the scene before him was something that needed to be experienced fully, not just documented. The way the adult foxes worked together, their coordinated movements and silent communication told a story that transcended simple wildlife behavior. The kit attempted to stand, its movements still uncertain after being trapped for so long. The elder fox stayed close, offering support and guidance with gentle nudges. The other two adults maintained their protective formation, but their postures had shifted slightly, showing signs of relief while remaining alert to their surroundings. The triangle they formed around the kit was now more about support than defense. The morning breeze carried the scent of pine and fallen leaves through the yard, a reminder of the approaching winter that made this rescue even more crucial. The sun had risen higher, casting shorter shadows across the ground and highlighting the fox's fur in shades of copper and gold. Nature itself seemed to be celebrating the successful liberation of the young one. Duke's barking suddenly changed. It pitched again, causing the largest fox to adjust its position with fluid grace. The coordination between the three adults remained flawless. As one moved, the others responded, maintaining their protective formation around the kit. Their movements spoke of years of evolved family behaviors, each member understanding its role in protecting their vulnerable young. Sarah had unconsciously tightened her grip on Ethan's shoulder, her maternal instincts responding to the powerful display of family bonds before them. The way the foxes cared for their young one reminded her of her own fierce desire to protect her son. In that moment, the barrier between human and wildlife seemed to dissolve, replaced by a universal understanding of familial love. The elder fox made a soft, almost musical sound, different from any noise they had heard during the rescue operation. The kit responded immediately, attempting another wobbly step toward its family. The other adults shifted their positions slightly, creating a safer space for the young one to move. Their patience and care were evident in every movement, every response to the kit's needs. The moment of retreat began with a subtle change in the elder fox's posture. Having ensured the kit was truly free and unharmed, the silver-tipped fox made another soft, distinct sound, different from its previous communications. The other adults responded immediately, their movements shifting from protective stances to preparation for departure. The coordination in their actions remained flawless, even as their mission changed from rescue to retreat. Duke's barking had become a steady rhythm in the background, but the foxes had long since adapted to the sound. The largest fox maintained its vigilant watch, but its body language had changed subtly. No longer was it poised for immediate defense. Instead, it seemed to be calculating the safest route back into the shelter of the Burlington woods. The first fox that had appeared began to move with new purpose, creating a path that would shield the kit's retreat. Ethan remained motionless, understanding instinctively that this moment was just as crucial as the rescue itself. He watched as the elder fox gently nudged the kit, encouraging it to take tentative steps toward the safety of the forest. The young fox's movements were still uncertain, but with each step, it seemed to gain more confidence, supported by the protective presence of its family. Sarah felt her heart racing as she witnessed the careful choreography of the fox's retreat. The way they moved together, adjusting their positions to ensure the kit's safety, spoke of an intelligence and social organization that went far beyond mere instinct. The morning sun caught their fur as they moved, creating an almost magical quality to their carefully coordinated departure. James continued to document the scene, though he found himself lowering his camera more frequently to watch with his own eyes. As a wildlife photographer, he had captured countless moments of animal behavior, but this was different. The level of sophistication in the fox's retreat strategy, their careful consideration of every movement, was unlike anything he had ever witnessed or documented before. The morning had grown warmer, burning away the last traces of the early chill. The breeze rustled through the remaining leaves on the trees, creating a natural curtain of moving shadows that seemed to aid the foxes in their careful withdrawal. The kit made steady progress toward the forest edge, each step guided by the gentle encouragement of its family. The largest fox suddenly shifted position, responding to a change in Duke's barking pattern. Its movement was smooth and calculated, maintaining the perfect coverage of their retreat while never losing sight of potential threats. The first fox adjusted its position in response, the two adults working in perfect harmony to create a protective corridor for the kit's safe passage. Sarah watched in amazement as the fox family executed their retreat with military precision. As an educator, she had always taught her students about the intelligence of wildlife, but this display of strategic thinking and cooperation went beyond anything she could have imagined. The way they protected their young one, how they worked together to ensure its safety, spoke of a depth of family bonds that transcended species. The elder fox maintained its position close to the kit, its experienced presence seeming to give the young one confidence. Its silver-tipped fur caught the morning light as it moved, creating an almost ethereal glow around its form. The wisdom in its movements was evident, each step placed precisely, each pause timed perfectly to allow the kit to keep pace. The retreat of the fox family had taken on an almost ceremonial quality as they moved with synchronized precision toward the safety of the Burlington woods. The first fox led the way, creating a safe path through the underbrush, while the largest fox maintained its protective position at the rear. Between them, the elder fox guided the kit with gentle nudges and soft vocalizations that seemed to give the young one courage. Duke's barking had become more distant, as if even he sensed the significance of the moment unfolding in the neighboring yard. The morning sun had reached its full strength now, creating long shadows that seemed to reach out from the forest like welcoming arms. The breeze carried the rich scent of autumn through the yard, rustling leaves and branches in a natural symphony that accompanied the fox's departure. Ethan stood transfixed, his young mind recording every detail of this extraordinary moment. He watched as the kit gained confidence with each step, its movements becoming more sure as it followed the guidance of its family. The boy understood that he was witnessing something rare and precious, a glimpse into the complex social world of these remarkable creatures that shared their woodland home. Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes as she watched the coordinated retreat. The way the adult foxes worked together to ensure the safety of their young one touched something deep within her. As a mother, she recognized the universal nature of their protective instincts. The barrier between human and wildlife seemed to dissolve in that moment, replaced by a shared understanding of familial love. James continued to document the scene through his camera lens, though he found himself increasingly watching with his own eyes rather than through the viewfinder. The morning light had created perfect conditions for photography, highlighting the fox's fur in shades of copper and gold. But the real story was in the subtle interactions between the family members, the quick glances, the slight adjustments in position, the way they responded to each other's movements without any visible signals. The largest fox suddenly paused, its ears twitching at some distant sound. The entire family responded instantly, their movements freezing in perfect synchronization. For a moment, Time seemed to stand still as they assessed the potential threat. Then, with a barely perceptible signal from the elder fox, they resumed their careful retreat, their movements even more fluid and purposeful than before. Sarah had unconsciously tightened her grip on Ethan's shoulder, her maternal instincts responding to the powerful display of family bonds before them. She watched as the kit made its way closer to the forest edge, each step supported by the protective presence of its family. The coordination between the adult foxes was flawless. As one moved, the others adjusted, maintaining their protective formation around the young one. The morning had grown warmer, burning away the last traces of dawn frost. The breeze carried the rich scent of pine and fallen leaves through the yard, a reminder of the approaching winter that made this rescue even more crucial. The sun cast shorter shadows now, highlighting the fox's fur in a way that seemed almost magical as they moved through patches of light and shade. James captured frame after frame of the retreat, knowing that what he was documenting would challenge conventional understanding of wildlife behavior. Through his viewfinder, he could see the subtle communications between the adults, the quick glances, the slight shifts in position, the way they responded to each other's needs without any visible signals. The sophistication of their coordination was unprecedented in his experience. As the Fox family disappeared into the dense undergrowth of the Burlington woods, the Richardson family remained motionless, still processing the extraordinary event they had just witnessed. The morning air seemed different somehow, charged with the lingering energy of the remarkable rescue operation that had unfolded in their backyard. Even Duke's barking had subsided to occasional whimpers, as if he too sensed the significance of what had transpired. Ethan was the first to break the silence, his young voice filled with wonder as he turned to face his parents. "They worked together," he whispered, his eyes shining with newfound understanding. "They didn't leave the little one behind." Sarah knelt beside her son, pulling him into a gentle embrace as she saw the profound impact the experience had had on him. James lowered his camera completely, knowing that some moments were meant to be preserved in memory rather than through a lens. The morning sun had reached its full strength now, casting warm light across their yard and making the dew-kissed grass sparkle. The breeze carried the rich scent of autumn through the air, rustling the remaining leaves on the trees in a gentle reminder of nature's constant presence. The spot where the kit had been trapped was now empty, with only a discarded piece of fishing line remaining as evidence of the drama that had unfolded. Sarah found herself reflecting on the deeper meanings of what they had witnessed. As an educator, she had always taught her students about the intelligence of wildlife, but this display of family bonds and cooperation had shown her something far more profound. The way the foxes had worked together, their unwavering focus on protecting their young one, spoke to universal truths about love and family that transcended species. James began reviewing the photographs he had captured, each frame telling part of the story of this remarkable morning. The images showed more than just a wildlife rescue. They documented a sophisticated display of problem-solving, teamwork, and family bonds that would challenge conventional understanding of animal behavior. He knew these photographs would be valuable not just as documentation, but as a testament to the complexity of wildlife relationships. The family made their way back to the house, but something had changed in their perception of their new home. The Burlington Woods was no longer just a scenic backdrop to their property. It was a living community, filled with families as devoted and complex as their own. Ethan walked between his parents, occasionally glancing back at the spot where the rescue had taken place, his young mind processing the profound lessons he had learned about family, cooperation, and the delicate balance of nature. Inside their warm kitchen, Sarah prepared hot chocolate for Ethan, while James downloaded his photos to his computer. The morning's events had sparked countless questions from their son, each one revealing his growing understanding of the natural world. His curiosity had been awakened in a way that no classroom lesson could have achieved, and both parents recognized this as a pivotal moment in their son's development. The morning's experience had changed something fundamental in their understanding of the world they shared with these remarkable creatures. The sophistication of the fox's rescue operation, their coordinated movements, and their unwavering dedication to protecting their young had shown them that the bonds of family and the instinct to protect one's own were universal truths that crossed the boundaries between species. The days following the remarkable rescue in the Richardson's backyard brought a profound change to their family's perspective on their new home. The Burlington Woods had revealed itself as more than just a scenic backdrop. It was a living tapestry of complex relationships and family bonds that mirrored their own. Each morning, Ethan would stand at his bedroom window, scanning the tree line with newfound appreciation for the hidden lives that unfolded beyond their yard. James's photographs of the rescue had garnered significant interest from local wildlife researchers and conservation groups. The images captured more than just a dramatic moment in nature. They documented a level of sophisticated social behavior that challenged existing understanding of fox family dynamics. The way the three adult foxes had worked together, their coordinated movements and clear strategic thinking, suggested levels of intelligence and cooperation that scientists had only begun to understand. Sarah found herself incorporating the experience into her teaching, sharing with her students not just the facts of what had happened, but the deeper lessons about family, cooperation, and the surprising similarities between human and animal communities. Her students were captivated by the story, their young minds opening to new possibilities about the intelligence and emotional lives of the creatures that shared their world. The autumn days grew shorter, and the Vermont landscape transformed into a canvas of brilliant reds and golds. Each evening, as the family gathered for dinner, their conversation would inevitably turn to that remarkable morning. Ethan had developed a new passion for wildlife observation, spending hours in the completed treehouse his father had built, keeping detailed notes about the animals he saw and their behaviors. One particularly crisp morning, as the family enjoyed breakfast together, they spotted movement at the edge of their property. There, in the early morning light, stood the silver-tipped fox, its experienced eyes surveying their yard with calm assessment. Behind it, partially hidden by the underbrush, they could make out the shapes of the other foxes, including a young one that moved with confident, healthy steps. The family watched in silent joy, recognizing the kit they had helped save, now fully recovered and thriving under its family's care. The moment lasted only seconds before the foxes melted back into the forest, but it left an indelible mark on their hearts. That brief glimpse confirmed what they had come to understand on that transformative morning, that the bonds of family and the instinct to protect one's own were universal truths that transcended the boundaries between species. James's wildlife photography had taken on new meaning since that day. His work now focused on capturing not just the beauty of animals, but the intimate moments that revealed their complex social lives. Each image he captured seemed to tell a story of cooperation, family bonds, and the sophisticated ways in which wildlife communities supported and protected their own. As winter approached, the Richardson family had fully settled into their new home, their connection to the natural world around them deeper and more meaningful than they could have imagined. The lesson they had learned that autumn morning had become a cornerstone of their family philosophy, that love, protection, and family bonds were not uniquely human traits, but universal languages spoken by all living creatures. The story of the Fox family's rescue had spread throughout their community, touching hearts and changing perspectives about the wildlife that shared their spaces. It served as a reminder that sometimes the most profound lessons come not from books or classrooms, but from quiet moments of observation and connection with the natural world. In the end, what had begun as a dramatic rescue had transformed into something far more significant, a testament to the power of family bonds, the sophistication of wildlife behavior, and the deep connections that exist between all living creatures. The Richardsons had become not just observers of nature, but grateful participants in its ongoing story. Dear listeners, we hope the story of the Richardson family and their extraordinary encounter with the Fox family has touched your hearts as deeply as it touched theirs. The remarkable display of intelligence, cooperation, and family bonds they witnessed reminds us that we share this world with creatures capable of profound emotional connections and sophisticated social behaviors. If you'd like to explore more stories that celebrate the amazing connections between humans and wildlife, you'll find our special playlist by clicking the link to your left. Each story in our collection offers unique insights into the remarkable world we share with our wild neighbors. Did this story move you? Did it change how you think about wildlife families? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your own stories of meaningful encounters with nature. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up if you want to join us for more heartwarming tales of discovery and connection. Remember, every day brings new opportunities to witness the extraordinary in the ordinary, to learn from the wisdom of nature, and to strengthen our connection with the world around us. See you in our next story.